I will say this. There probably are more women out there who would be interested in a casual relationship that is going to be longer than one night stand. That with sexual agreements, most women want to have sex with someone more than once.
We all get to be more courageous in those conversations. Yeah. Collectively, that's how we're going to raise the standard. And you may get shut down from somebody. And if that's the case, then there was no way that you were going to succeed in having a casual relationship with that person anyway. So
we're both kind of itching to scratch together. That's not an uncommon need for a woman. But the thing that's happening is that it's happening once and then it's kind of giving them like a bad taste. And then they're like, I don't really want to be the girl that's sleeping with a lot of different men. So
I definitely want a long-term partner at some point, but I'm not quite ready for that. Right now, I'm just missing, I'm craving physical connection. I'm also exploring what type of people I'm interested in. So I'm much more prone to casual sex. And I'm like, if it can happen on the first date, awesome. Within a couple dates, fine. But I'm not really like, I don't want to be dating somebody for months and months and months without being able to experience and explore some physical connection. So that's not what I'm going to lead with. But what is a way that a man can, communicate that?
Yeah. And it's interesting you bring this up because I think that there's a few directions that men are going right now that I see on, because most of my clients are like very serious daters, and it's like, I'm looking for the one. And so they don't even swipe on, there's an option on the dating apps that says like casual. They won't even swipe on that, but I will, because I'm curious to know what that means, right? Like I'm the curiosity, and then I'm the one who's like, awesome, hope you find that. I just want to see like, what's the thing out there? And the red flag, the thing that is like, if you're a man listening right now, and this is seriously the space you're in, and you're like, do not say when someone asks you, what do you mean by casual? Well, I just want to see where things will go. Maybe we hang out and then, just see what happens organically. That is like the most unsafe feeling a woman who hasn't dealt with her sexual shame could ever hear, right? So like, if the woman says yes to that, she's looking for validation, right? So like I was saying earlier, when we change our shame to currency, and then we turn that currency to validation. So if a woman hears that and then she's like, okay, let's just see what happens, she's also looking for some type of validation, right? She's looking for, because what I'm hearing there is like, I know exactly what I want, but I'm not going to tell you because I'm going to see if like I can get you to be around me. Maybe I'll take my shirt off in front of you. You'll feel like I'm attractive. It's just so sticky and not clean, and it doesn't feel great in a woman's body, especially because the majority of women haven't dealt with their sexuality. And so when they hear that, they're like, okay, he wants sex and that's what I'm good for. And at least I'll get some validation. And like I said, generalization, this may not be every woman. How that can look so much cleaner is saying, hey, actually, this is what I need right now in my life. I'm looking for someone who XYZ, we can hang out, have a really good time, and have a sexual relationship together. That's what I'm looking for. I know right now I'm not in long-term plays, and if that's something that doesn't work for you, I respect that. My whole body calms down because now I have this choice, right? Like suddenly I have a choice. Do I want to jump in with this guy who's super attractive, really honest and clear, and can communicate, or do I want to be like, actually, that's not what I'm looking for either, right? Because it's so clean to say, hey, I'm not just some perv on the internet looking to try to trick you into seeing if you'll have sex with me. It's, hey, I actually know that eventually I want a long-term relationship. That is something that would be great if it happens organically. But right now I know that the most I can give is some hang time and I do definitely want some sexual activities with that hang time. And then the other part is, what's your offer as the man to the table to that? Of like, what is the thing that like, why do you feel like this is going to be beneficial for the both of you? Because that would be the question I would ask next up. This sounds amazing. But what if because it's like a lot of times for a woman, it's not like, okay, I'm going to hang and have sex with you. Then it's what? Currency, right? The shame is coming up. What's the currency for me then? Well, it's always there.
And I think there is a definitely a degree of entitlement that
Hmm.
goes along with the horniness of the male species,
Hmm.
right? There's like a
Yeah.
okay, I'm horny and there's this seed's got to go somewhere. And
Yeah.
I think a lot of that sneaky circuitous language you're talking about comes from men not being able to just say, I'm I'm really horny and I'm looking for a sexual relationship. That's something that would be really
Mhm.
fulfilling for me. When it's spoken in a tone that suggests, and I want that from you versus an invitation, the way you shared. If guys could just go
Yeah.
back and listen to what you said from the lens
Yeah.
of, this is something that I'm looking for in my life. I'm looking for a relationship. Because when
Yeah.
I say I'm looking for a relationship, immediately it's like I'm describing a tree that's off in the distance, and I'm
Yes.
describing it to you and seeing, do you see that tree too? Is that a tree that you're interested in as well? Instead of, you're the tree and this is what I
Yeah.
want from you. Right. It's
Yeah.
that's a different tone. It's very subtle, but
Yeah.
because what I hear from a lot of men is, well, can I be that honest? Can I just declare what I'm interested in? And for me, I think the answer is yes. And it's important to think about how that's being communicated. It's not just what's being
Yeah.
communicated, but if it's just, here's what I'm looking for, are you going to give it to me or not?
Hmm.
Obviously, the undertone, not hopefully not what guys are just saying,
Yeah. Yeah.
but also creating an experience, knowing that yes, we debunked the myth in the beginning. Women are interested in and are
Yeah.
craving sex in the same way that men are, just in a different way. So we have to consider that as well. That
Yeah.
there's got to be, even if it's a casual relationship, there's still a relationship that's happening.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I mean, and just speak from the woman's perspective, there is a lot of women who are, so the other part of this, the part of why it would, the part why I believe a one night stand or just a hookup, those are possible, and I've seen people do them on the dating apps. And usually, when that works, is when the guy or the girl is that honest. So I know women who are out of like a breakup, for example, and they're just like, I cannot, but I also want to enjoy the pleasure of a man. And those work because that woman knows exactly what she needs and where she's at. And there's not shame around it because it's like, I know what I want right now. I know this. And so when a man's that clear, it works out really well. I think the fear is that the woman's going to be like, well, no, I'm not interested. Right. But if she's not interested, right, if she's not interested in that, tricking her into it isn't cleaner because then ghosting happens, trauma happens, and then we have a big, huge mess. That's my point, is that sometimes it's a numbers game of finding the woman who's like, yeah, that's what I'm looking for. I'm not saying there's a ton of them out there. Now, I will say this. There probably are more women out there who would be interested in a casual relationship that is going to be longer than one night stand. Because that's the thing, is that, which we can get a little bit into, is sexual agreements, is that with sexual agreements, most women want to have sex with someone more than once. Like, I don't want to have to cure that need of mine with different men. Like, we want to do that with, like, if you're good at sex and we're enjoying it, we want that to be the same person, even if it is casual sex and it's not leading to a long-term relationship. And that's the biggest like edge I hear from women, is like, I would do that, but it's like, once you have sex with them once, it's like, that's it, they're gone. And I wouldn't mind there's so many women I hear say this all the time. I wouldn't mind having someone that we're doing this on a regular basis. Right? Like, this is like, we're both kind of itching to scratch together. That's not an uncommon need for a woman. But the thing that's happening is that it's happening once, and then it's kind of giving them like a bad taste. And then they're like, I don't really want to be the girl that's sleeping with a lot of different men. So I'm just not going to do it at all. And I'm going to be celibate for,
yeah.
Now the only option I have is not to bring up Taylor Swift, but I can't help it. There's a line in one of her songs. It's like, a woman's either seen as a one night stand or a wife. Like, and it's like, that's the feeling that that has put us in a box. It's like, well, I only either get, these are my choices, one night stand or marriage. Like, why can't there be an in between that happens where it's like, we both have these sexual agreements that this is something that we're going to scratch the itch together.
Well, and I think on the to balance the conversation out, I think there's
Yeah.
also a belief that men have is that, well, she's either going to try to pull me into a long-term relationship because that's all she really wants, or she's going to reject me because there's another 10 guys lining up behind me. So I think it's important to balance the conversation also, because that's, men are so afraid of rejection, which I'm sure women are too, but men especially. I think the rejection game hits a lot harder with men, and probably because a lot of this unhealthy shame dialogue we talked about, where yes, there's definitely been that narrative about men desiring women for something, but because of that, it's the story has also been that, well, men chase women around, and if women were just a little bit empowered, they could really have their pick of the litter. So that puts us men in a sea of other guys that were constantly like, well, am I handsome enough? Am I strong enough? Am I in shape enough? If I don't make enough money, if I don't make more money, if I'm not in better shape than, if I'm not as clever with my words or my energy as the next guy, then there's no way that's ever going to happen for me, unless I'm willing to lock into something that I'm not ready for, like a long-term relationship. So it's kind of interesting how these shame spirals have created these funky dynamics when really there's so much more that's possible.
Yes, I love that you brought that up, because, and a lot of times women can't even fathom or believe that men might be insecure.
Interesting.
Like, it's very interesting where when I actually had a client recently, she was an ex-client, reach out to me, and she goes, and she was having a casual relationship, and then he ended it at text. And it was very hurtful to her. She's like, I did everything. We had the agreements. We had such adult conversations. We knew exactly where the other person stood. And then when he was ready to end things, he sent me a text message. And I was like, that has nothing to do with you, babe. That has to do with his own embodiment. He hasn't embodied the body of being able to have that conversation, because somewhere he's internalized that he's rejecting you, and he probably can't take rejection. And so he doesn't know how to have the conversation. It's not actually have anything to do with something you did, and for a woman to fathom, like, wait, he could be insecure and he's just afraid to have the conversation with me. It's like, they can't even like fathom that. It's like, oh, I must have did something wrong. I said the wrong thing. He must have thought I was getting attached. Like, right. We start to internalize like, oh, we did something that made them think we want the relationship. We want the ring. You know what I mean? So then we like, are like, and instead it's like, oh, well, whatever the reason was for the ending had something more to do with his own insecurities. And it's interesting. So, and another reason why I want to have this conversation is because I was dating someone for 4 years on and off. We would go from friends, then we go to friends with benefits, then we go to dating. Like, we had this very interesting relationship that I never felt dissatisfied with. I was never like, when's he going to ask me to be his girlfriend? When is this going to be a committed relationship? Where's marriage going to go? Yet the commentary I would get from my female friendships, sometimes even my guys, because it's societal, is like, what's happening here? Like, what's the plan, right? Like, everybody was like, felt really unsafe with the fact that both of us just enjoyed being with each other. It felt really unsafe for everyone around us. And I was like, well, at the very beginning, we had this conversation, exactly what I'm talking about right now, where he was very honest about, I can be with just you, but I don't see myself anytime soon being in a long-term relationship. I travel, I'm an entrepreneur, I do this and that. And I don't know if I'm ever going to be the marrying guy or the having children guy, but I like being around you. I like making you happy. I like having sex with you. I like doing all the things. I like traveling with you. And I felt the same way. And my shame wanted to be like, ooh, no, that's not allowed. Right? My shame was like, I had many conversations with different girlfriends. And the biggest one I got, well, you're wasting your best years. That's literally told to me from another woman. Well, you're wasting your best years. You're 33. Like, or no, I think it was 35. You're 35. Like, you're getting older. What happens if you spend like a year or two with this guy and you never get married and you just wasted the best years when you're in your best shape and you're young still? Like, and I was like, oh my God, I'm not allowed to feel pleasure. Like, there is a currency to my pleasure, and the currency is commitment, marriage, children. That's the currency for my pleasure. I am not allowed. I'm getting emotional because I know there's a lot of women who feel this way. I am not allowed to feel pleasure until I have proven that I am valuable enough to be married to and to have children with. And that is what we're up against in these conversations, right? So the men are up against, well, if I bring up sex, and that's a really important factor of like being casually hanging out with this woman, then I look like the guy who only wants sex and I'm a dick and I'm not, like all the stories and I'm an a-hole and I'm avoidant and or whatever else, And the women are up against, well, if he only wants that, if something casual, I don't have value. Even if he wants to show me the time of my life, I still don't have value because he doesn't want to marry me. Right? These are the like real life things that happen. And what it took for me was to just make the decision that my pleasure was really important to me, no matter how old I was getting as a woman or how old my eggs were getting, or I had to make that decision and he was really honest with me. Nothing about what he did was cruel or mean. It was like, hey, and we would have the best times. I would laugh because I'd be like, when was the last time you and your boyfriend or husband spent 4 days traveling together and had the time of our lives and didn't argue once? Right? Like, when was the last time that happened for you and had great sex and went out and had amazing food? And when was the last time someone treated you in that way? Because I was willing to enjoy it. I was able to receive it from a man. And I do think that that's possible, but it takes a lot of communication and being really real with each other about what the other person wants.
That's the biggest takeaway, is if there's any overarching remedy for these major relationship breakdowns and mishaps, it's just cleaning up our communication, being more clear and having the courage to be honest. Now, I know from the man's side of things, there's this fear that, okay, if I'm willing to take the risk and be that level of honest, what if it's not being heard or received by somebody who's capable of having that conversation? And that's a major unknown. And I think for that, we all get to be more courageous in those conversations, because collectively that's how we're going to raise the standard. And you may get shut down from somebody. And if that's the case, then there was no way that you were going to succeed in having a casual relationship with that person anyway. So better to take the risk now and find out. And of course, that means facing off with the possibility of rejection. So I understand that. I just wanted to mention that because I know for a lot of guys, it's, well, if I'm going to take that risk and be that honest, what if they misunderstand it? Or what if they can't really hear where I'm coming from? Well, if that's the case, then they answered your question right there. They're not available for that.
And I do want to add, though, if that is something you seriously desire, what I love about polyamorous relationships or the kink world or S&M world is that's the thing that they do in those worlds is they create such clear standards, boundaries, and communication with each other that we haven't learned in the heterosexual world of I don't know what you want to call it, normalities, right? We haven't learned that, like, actually, maybe if we just had some conversations with each other, we would learn what the other person wants and needs and what we want and need and see if we make a good match. Right? And so I think when you're sharing this like rejection part, I think there's also a part that has to be curious. Like, what do you want? What do you need? What would be the thing that would, if you are interested at all in having something a little bit more, I even hate the word casual because I don't even think it's casual. It's present, right? It's like something that's a little more present, that we're not speaking in future terms, that we're not moving toward this one goal of a long-term relationship currently. Like, what do you want? What do you need from me as a man to make you feel safe in this situation? Right? Because I think that's another part that's missing is the man is saying, oh, here's what I want. And then the woman's going like, okay, well, then you just want me to show up and like have my legs open? Like, there has to be a conversation. Like, well, what about you? Like, is this something you've ever been interested in? How do you like to be treated when you're in a relationship in the dating phases and in the phases of we're getting to know each other, we're having sex, we're having a good time, we're not sure if this is going to end up happily ever after? Like, what do you need during those times? Because a lot of times it's not as like confusing as it might be. I think the story goes, oh, they need a committed relationship. And really what the woman needs is like to know she's going to see you again. Like, it's as simple as like, what I need is to know that this isn't just a one-time thing. I'm never going to see you again. That we're not going to have the best time of our lives tonight, and then I'm never going to hear from you again. And if that's the case, I need to know that before I get involved. If this is really just a one night, and there's a guy they make fun of in Austin. I think I can't remember his name. Cuddle Bay. They call him Cuddle Bay, but he basically is like well known on Bumble because all he does is match with every girl on Bumble, and he travels all over. And other cities know him, by the way. He travels all over, and he just says, "Hey, you want to cuddle?" Like that's his opening line on every dating app, and he's very clear. He's very clear on, hey, I travel. I'm not looking. He even will say, like, I don't even, if it doesn't lead to sex, it doesn't lead to sex. I think that's what he says. But I want to cuddle, right? Like, he's very clear. He's known for it. But you want to know what? There's no woman out there who's like, that guy's a dick. I've had these women like, oh, man, it's so funny. I'm not interested, but clearly there are women who are interested. Uh-huh. But he's honest about it.
Right.
No one's giving him he's not getting like a bad reputation. It's more like wow, someone who's actually honest about what they're looking for and who they are and what's going on in their lives.
Well, and I think there's also, as I'm exploring this with you, I think there's a little bit of this reticence that men have of, well, if I do put that out there, I might get turned down more often, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that could also be the possibility is that, well, if at least if I'm being vague about my desires, I might be able to create, it's almost like, it's funny that I thought of it this way, but it's almost like in sales, right? Some people who are really direct and saying, hey, I'm calling you because I want to pitch you this thing. A lot more hangups, right? A lot more but at least we got to that point. Whereas if somebody says, hey, can I have about 15 minutes of your time? I really just wanted to catch up with you and find out how you're doing. It turns into the sales pitch. I feel disgusting. I'm like, ugh, like that was annoying. Why didn't you just tell me what you wanted off the bat? And I would have told you, no, you wasted both of our time. And now I'm seeing like, oh, that's how this feels on the other side of the spectrum. That's what that feels like when a guy's not just like, hey, listen, because there's a respectful way to say it, as you just laid out for us. Yeah. This is what I'm interested in. And I'm not assuming that that's what you're interested in or expecting that from you, but I just want to be upfront and clear about that off the bat. It might lead to more rejections because maybe there's a bunch of women that you're matching with that don't actually want that, but at least it's clear. And the one key thing I heard in everything you were saying is it always comes back to safety. Even when it's our people around us who are concerned about our safety, it's all about safety, safety, safety. So at the core root of this, how much of this gray area and this lack of clarity when it comes to our sexuality is just because we haven't made sex and sexuality safe.